Hello everybody. Welcome to my channel. Today I am going to explain an excellent Indonesian horror film called Satan's Slave. This film's Indonesian name is Pengabdi Setan. The film is set in 1981's rural Indonesia. A young lady, Rini, lives with her dad, Bahri, grandma Rahma, young brothers, Tony, Bondi and Ian, in a rural mansion. The youngest kid, Ian, was mute. They used sign language with him to communicate. Rini's mom, Mawarni Suwono, was an erstwhile famous singer. She was bedridden with a mysterious illness. She was given a bell to call someone when needed. Rini, Tony and their dad used to look after her. In the first scene we see Mawarni chanting in an ancient Javanese language. The 1980s were the time of vinyl records. We see Rini with her mom's agent. Agent says records are not selling. They have given whatever they owed. Your mom has not produced any new song in the last 3 years. He says he can't help much. This family's financial conditions were terrible. For Mawarni's treatment, Rini's dad had pledged their house. At one hand, he had no money and, on the other hand, Mawarni was getting worse. Now Rini heard her mom's bell. When she entered her room, Mawarni was staring at an empty space. She was horrified and scared. At night Rini's second brother, Tony, gives some money to his father. He collected that by selling his bike. Meanwhile, Bondi tells a teaching of his religious teacher to Rini. He says whenever the last family member of the deceased person walks 40 steps away from one's tomb, the dead rises again for a few minutes. When they see they are in a shroud, then they die really. Rini dismiss it as superstition as their family was an atheist, and they never prayed. Now Tony combs her mom's hair. Suddenly, a window opens all by itself. Now his mom gives him a scary look. Later, Rini secretly observes her dad talking to her mom. At midnight in Rini's dream she sees a white lady in her mom's room. She was watching the graveyard from her room window. Rini thinks this is her mom, but she is not. She now hears her mom's bell from bed. She was warning her by banging the bell forcefully. Now that white lady turns and laughs. Her skin color of this lady was white and she looked exactly like her mother. Now Rini wakes up scared. Now she actually hear her mom's bell. When she checked, her mom was standing at that window, and suddenly she fell to the ground and died. The family mourns. Next day they conduct a funeral with the help of a spiritual leader, called Ustad G. After the funeral Ustad G's son, Hendra introduces himself to Rini. Now villagers pray at Rini's house. Bondi was scared as hell as the graveyard was opposite their house. His dad talks to him, and calms him down. Now Rini's dad says he will be out of town for a few days. He asks Rini and Tony to manage the house in the meantime. Naturally, these two were worried as in the 80s cell phones were not available for emergencies. Now Bondi was awake due to his fear. He sees a man in the graveyard. A guy was searching for something with a torch. Now Tony hears his mom's bell ring. When he checked the room, the bell was still ringing but in midair. As soon as he sees it, it falls down to the ground. Now Tony was scared too. So he runs for his room. Now their dad leaves for the city. Bondi bunks school. Now all sorts of paranormal activities start in their house. First, the Rini sees an image of a lady near their well. Bondi too sees that white lady in his toy. Ian plays a hide-and-seek game with his grandmother. She was in a wheelchair as she can't walk, she had asthma too. Ian finds her in a game which makes her happy. Next night Tony heard his mom's voice on the radio. She was calling him. He shuts down the radio in horror, but still hears his mom's voice. Tony, do my hair. He sees a shadow of one white lady who makes him fall from his cot. But suddenly, out of the blue, his mom's comb comes into his hand. When he checked it in the lights, there was nobody. At midnight, Ian was standing in front of the room, looking scared. When Bondi asks what happened, Ian points at their mom's portrait. Now Bondi throws a white curtain to cover that portrait. But the curtain stops in midair for some time in front of that portrait, then it advances at them with speed. Naturally, Bondi and Ian both scream like hell. When Rini arrives there, Bondi says mom's ghost had attacked them. He points at the portrait which was now covered in a curtain. Rini now calms both of them down. In the next scene we see Grandma writing a letter in fear. Tony keeps his mom's bell and comb near her grave and wishes for peace. Next day Hendra tells Rini that he saw a lady during the funeral. She was not from their village. I even checked the graveyard the night your mom died, but couldn't find anything fishy. But what was shocking here was that I saw the same white lady again in your house, meaning Rini's house. Hendra says some evil spirit has taken her mother's form, and the house is haunted. Meaning here it is clear that Bondi saw Hendra that night in the graveyard when he was awake. Rini says it's natural for you to be superstitious as you are a son of Ustad G. Hendra convinces her that he is open-minded, unlike his father. Rini refuses Hendra's offer of staying at his house. Now in the next scene we see grandmother walking all by herself. She was going somewhere, pain was all over her face. Later, Rini finds her grandmother's body in a well, being dead. They conduct her funeral. It seems somebody forced her to commit suicide. Bondi was in terrible shock as he was the one who first saw his grandmother's body. Rini finds her grandma's letter addressed to a guy named Buddyman. Rini and Hendra meet that guy. He says he and her grandmother were close, but she had to marry his friend. He says her grandma was not ready for her dad's marriage to her mom. Their relationship was bitter due to her mom's inability to conceive. Also, at that time singing was considered a despised profession. When eventually Mawarni had kids, her grandma's suspicion grew too. She believed Mawarni prayed to Satan for children, not God. Rini didn't believe this story. To convince her, Buddyman gave her a magazine in which his article on the occult was published. He says they, meaning the cult, can't take them if they stay together. He advises Rini to read the article to fully understand it. Now suddenly a blind guy interrupts their meeting and reminds him of his massage timings. Now Bondi in sleep whispers that he will not kill Ian, I love him. It seems he is possessed. When Rini arrived back home he was in total possession, isolated. Rini and Tony think that he is still in shock due to grandma's death. Now while sleeping, Bondi signals to Ian in sign language that he will kill him. Now Ian was scared like hell. At midnight, Ian hears a voice. He follows that voice and as soon as he opens the door from which it was coming, he sees a black hand with long fingernails. He screams, but since he is mute, there was no sound. This one scene is magnificent horror and truly iconic, it really scares you. Now Ian tries to run, but his shirt sticks to a nail, he screams more with no sound. Next day Rini finds her mom's old vinyl record. When she plays it backward, we hear chanting in an ancient language. Later Rini found Ian outside in a small box outside the house, as he slept there the whole night out of fear. Rini takes him inside and assures him that they all are with him. Now Tony, after reading that article, tells ladies who can't conceive, can join the demonic cult. The cult will grace them with children with one condition: when their last child turns 7, they must give it to the cult. Tony explains a strange calculation. Rini is 22 years old, he is 16 years old, Bondi is 10 years old, and Ian will be 7 in the next 3 days. He says their mom had children at an interval of 7 years to trick the devil. He says there were always a few strange people around their mom during her parties. By showing a photo album, he says, he even asked one guy once who he was. That guy didn't answer. The article says these were the members of the cult. When a kid turns 7, the living dead arrives at their house to take that kid away. They can take the kid only if the family voluntarily allows it. To all this story, Rini again dismiss it as superstition. Now when Rini was giving breakfast to Ian, grandma's chair moved all by itself. Rini glimpses her grandma's crying image on the front glass, which makes her scared. She asks Ustad G to check the house as he is an expert on religion. He checks the house and says there is an evil spirit which is haunting them. He advised them to pray to Allah. When Rini was getting ready to pray, she again saw that white lady. In another room, Ian and Bondi were sleeping. Suddenly their room's door opened all by itself. Ian again saw a ghost in black color, which was staring at Bondi. As Rini prays, a white-looking lady hovered around her. As Rini completes her prayer, a white lady attacks her. After seeing her white face and hand, Rini runs to Ustad G's house. Next day Hendra says she is zombie. Since in ancient times such beings have been there. They use humans to propagate their kind. Tony says, according to this article, one can't defeat them, but they can decline their demand by staying united. Tony also says their biological dad must be different members of the cult as all 4 look so divisively different. It was strange, their dad never thought why they looked so different. Now Hendra gets a call from Buddyman. He asks Rini and Hendra to meet him. But only Hendra visits. Buddyman hands him his new article. While playing his tape loud, he whispers something in Hendra's ear. He did that to block any evil spirits from listening to their conversation. But now while coming back, Hendra faces an accident and dies instantly on the road. At the Buddyman's house a blind guy comes without notice. Buddyman tries to shoo him off with a stick as he thought he may be a member of the cult. In the house, Bondi was ready to kill Ian with a knife. In time, Rini takes away his knife. The villagers bring Hendra's body to the village. Ustad conducts his funerals in disbelief. Rini finds Buddyman's letter from Hendra's belongings. At night, Rini heard a noise. When she checked, it was Hendra's zombie. He tried to drag Rini from his house. As the Rini screams, Tony and Ian jumps to help their sister. Meanwhile, Ustad offers no help as he was too devastated in grief. Now the kid's dad arrived there. Apparently he was back from the city. He takes all of them back to their house. Rini explains everything to him. He was shocked at his mother's death. He says tomorrow itself they will walk away from their house. After some time, Tony shouts, "Help, help!" Ian was locked in the bathroom. As they open door, we see someone garbing Ian into the well. Ian's dad too jumps into the well and saves him somehow. We see a zombie-like black creature in a well. Now cult members who were actually Satan's slaves surround their house. As the family locks all their doors, a lot of paranormal activities start to happen. Some force throws a wheelchair at them. As panic grips Rini, Tony and Dad get stuck in the room, while only Ian and Bondi were outside. Now some supernatural power has attacked Ian. Meanwhile, Bondi comes out of possession. Now their dad preys on the spirits of Mawarni and Grandma. He thinks all of this is his fault. In the background we hear Grandma's voice as an asthmatic patient breathing. Now Bondi with courage tries to rescue Ian. As soon as he touches Ian, evil power vanishes. Now his dad with a steel rod shouts at cult members, says he will not give any of his children away. Now cult members, while moving away from their house, they throw something around the house. Next day the family starts to leave the village. They also plan Ian's surprise birthday party at midnight. Their taxi was supposed to arrive at 4 p.m. In the evening, Ustad arrives at their house and says sorry. He stays at their house. While walking around the house, Rini finds a lot of red seeds. Even at 10:30 p.m. there was no sign of a taxi. Just suddenly the electricity goes off. Later Rini remembers Hendra's letter. After reading it, she says to Tony that this is an updated article. According to this, cult members arrives to give a clue to the living dead. She says all the red seeds are for awakening the living dead. When the devil kid turns 7, he must be surrounded by an army of the living dead. She says Ian is a devil child and Grandma's ghost is attacking him to save them. Now they again see that white lady moving into their dad's room. Now Dad also sees that white lady sleeping beside him. He runs to his children's room. After midnight, Ian was speaking to someone. Yes, he was speaking. All these years he was doing a drama of not speaking. When Bondi asks, he says, "I am speaking to my friends." He speaks properly and laughs naughtily. This was a too scary moment for me in the film. Bondi sees the living dead white zombie outside the window. Now zombies kill Ustad. Hendra zombie was also there. Now they see Ian with other zombies outside. Ian asks his dad to come outside. He was never his son. He was devil's son. That's why Mawarni's health was upset. Cult knew that she was cheating. So they decided to take the child by force. All these years the family was feeding a devil's child. Tony drags his dad inside the house. Living dead again attacks them. Now I'll see Grandma's ghost who was stopping these creatures. She just wanted to kill Ian as she knew he was the son of the devil. When you saw a black ghost, it was her. Now Buddyman arrives there and snakes them away. He says Ian was never their child. Now the film starts after 1 year. These 4 were living in an apartment. Their neighbor brings the food and tries to be cozy. Later she says to her husband that we have to find new victims. Her husband says this time they have to take good care of them so that they can't run away. Now satanic music plays, they dance. We see a jar full of red seeds proving they were the head of the cult. In the film, the cinematography, sound, black and white color combination, costume design gives you a proper horror feeling. In the film, zombie is white and Grandma's ghost is black. During Rini's praying scene, 2 different evils haunt the 2 characters. The audience will definitely overlook this minuet difference. Ian never mentions that black hand to his sister. In the end, he stops Grandma's ghost with a single hand. even when the ghost was ripping all the furniture around him. He was able to stop it as he was the devil's son. He was doing a drama of being a nice, cute brother. Grandma was telling Bondi to kill Ian. I think he might be a member of the cult as he was not that scared. When he went to city he had no money, but when he returned he had all the wealth. He might have left the cult long ago. He might not know this child thing. In trouble he prays to ghosts of Mawarni and Ma. At the end, when the couple says we have to keep them happy this time, they might be talking about Dad. Mawarni's living dead haunted and pressurized them so that they could voluntarily give away their child. At the end, they did the same with no option. So this is the story of Satan's slave. Please tell me about your opinion in comments. Please subscribe and like the video. Thanks for watching. Take care.